All right. Good morning, everyone. We're live on Facebook. Gordana, happy Sunday. Happy
Happy Sunday, Lucas. Happy Sunday, everyone, and
Sunday.
welcome to another Sunday Live with Lucas and Gordana.
I love these. I love, and it's so
Yes,
cool that people. Yesterday, I saw the people tweeting out like, "I can't wait for tomorrow. It helps my Sunday."
yeah,
I'm like, that's so beautiful. It's so
yes,
cool. These
yeah,
conversations, like last week, do you have to love, or the parents, the all the topics.
yes,
These are real.
yes.
These are the real deal.
It's the real deal. It's important topics we need to look at and discuss and just have a conscious conversation about them. I mean, exploring them in a very, very calm and calm way. That I think that is very much needed in this world. I mean, we're not arguing here, we're not trying to win over each other. We just want people to come and get what they need and then do whatever they want with it. It's about growth, it's not about winning or making people believe what we think, but it's an alternative way of looking at who you are and where you're heading in your life. So I think that today is a really, really interesting topic. I mean, we talk about our tricky ego and how it decepts us and how it distorts our perception of reality. And that is its job. It is supposed to distort it, but if it starts distorting it into a negative way, that is when it's not working for us. It is actually harming us. So, we are going to have a blast here talking about the ego and actually finding out how to trick it into working for us and using the ego instead of being used by the ego.
So often, um, I mean, what's interesting about the ego is we get people think there's a lot of narrative around it's negative ego death, and we've talked about this many times off these
Mm,
lives. And instead of honoring our ego and thanking it for playing its role, in fact, every person that has a job got a job because of their ego. Every person that
mm,
gets a paycheck because of their ego. That's the filter that people like and hire
mm,
and present. But the reality is when we can understand that we are not our ego, that it's like being Michael Singer in the book Untethered Soul.
untethered. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
like when you're in the movie and you're in a movie theater and you're just enthralled in this movie and someone
Mm,
sneezes and you're like, "Oh, wait, I'm in a movie theater." That's the
mm,
separation that I think people are hungering for, is like, how am I not fully controlled by this
mm,
narrative that seems to always be an adventure,
mm.
a thriller, sci-fi, or whatever movie that they find themselves in.
Yeah, it's because the ego is actually the narrator within you. So wherever you're going, the ego is narrating the world for you. It says, "Oh, look there. Oh, look there. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, I love that." And it's talking and talking all the time. And we forget that we're actually the listener. We're the ones choosing what we want to hear. But when you forget that you're the listener, when you forget that you're in a movie theater, that's when you think that you are the ego, and then life becomes very complicated.
Yes.
Unless you are aware of that ego is creating filters, it is creating stories for you, it tells you stuff about reality, and you are supposed to know which stories are true to you and which aren't true. Ego will try anything because that is its job. Its job is to distract you into looking at this illusion that we are creating. Its job is to keep you from going into stillness and knowing who you truly are, being in this stillness. Its job is to make you look at the illusion, because that is actually what we're doing here. Since we have a physical body, we're supposed to be in this distraction. But we cannot forget that we're the stillness, exploring the distractions, exploring the motion, exploring the movie. And I think that it's so easy to think that, oh, I am the ego. This is what it is. My life is this story. And the ego just perpetuates the same story because it wants you to stay in that compartment. It likes to separate you from anything else. That is the ego's job. And actually, I wanted to start off this Sunday Live by reading a chapter from my book. It
Okay.
takes a couple of minutes
Yeah.
where I describe what I think ego is. So I'll see if I can. Okay, so here we go. Ego is an important aspect of being a human being. In itself, ego is actually not a bad thing. People do not like when I say this, specifically people who are in the spiritual world and the new age. They think that, oh my God, you need to lose the ego so you can't speak like this. But this is what I believe. And here I go. There is a common belief about the ego. We are taught that the ego is not good for us and that we need to become spiritual and one with our source, all that is, in order to know who we truly are. But the way I see it, this is not how physical reality works. I see ego as a neutral tool that simply has the task of separating something out from all that is and defining this something's boundaries or limits. And it does so for a good reason. In order for all that is to experience itself as me or you or anyone else, it needs to focus consciousness in one point. Ego is that focusing tool, enclosing a central point of activity for your spirit to inhabit.
Mm.
So, in itself, ego is not a bad thing. It is an important aspect of being a human being, enabling a soul to focus itself into a body and experience physical reality. Without your ego, you wouldn't know where you end and outer reality begins.
Mm.
Ego helps you define you. It is when humans forget that ego is just a focusing tool and ego becomes their prime and only identity that it turns into a negative force, perpetuating hate or fear. Initially, then, ego isn't a negative thing. It is a neutral device that focuses you into being you. And furthermore, your ego contains your specific desires, wishes, and passions, all of which are important for the spiritual evolution of the human species. But ego needs to be balanced with the knowledge of our infinite, eternal, spiritual source. Our source, or all that is inclusive, inviting, embracing, infinite, and limitless. Ego, on the other hand, is separating, excluding, defining, finite, and limiting. It has to be in order for you to be focused on being you. Our source is unconditional acceptance and love. But if we focus ourselves too much on that, we become less distinguished in the physical reality. Ego is based on restrictions. Its primary function is to distinguish you as separate from all that is and to define your essential qualities, limits, and boundaries. This is why ego contains all your personal desires, wishes, goals, passions, wants, and needs. Your ego will tell you a specific take on this physical reality, your specific wants and needs. It will tell you what you enjoy and what you love in this physical reality. In short, ego contains your desires. And isn't that what life actually is all about? Exploring what you love, exploring what you find interesting, exploring your passions. If you silence your ego, your focus point, and become more of all that is, you miss the point of being in a physical reality. Your infinite soul wants to explore what it is like to have limitation, what it is like to have a body. If we just dream about the spiritual world or getting out of this body, we miss the point of being here altogether. And we fail to see the beauty of having a physical life. A couple of years ago, I saw a German movie that affected me tremendously. It is called Wings of Desire. The story is about an eternal angel who oversees human activity and secretly dreams of becoming a human being. The movie reminded me of the incredible beauty to be found in everyday things. I mean, things like we usually take for granted: the smell of a newspaper, the taste of coffee, the touch of a hand, the wind in your hair, the rain on our face. The angel had the privilege of time, or more correctly, he had the privilege of no time because he was eternal. Yet he was unable to fully enjoy his being because he had no body through which he could experience physical reality. The story made me understand how privileged we actually are to be in this reality. I realized that my spirit is focused in time and space for a reason, a physical reason. It is here because of an experience it cannot have in the spiritual realm, that of being me or you or anyone here. The ego becomes the tool that focuses all that is into me, into you, and into every single one of us. So, physical reality is about creating balance between the eternally entangled polarities of mind and matter, body and soul, ego and spirit. And that was what I think that we need to know about the ego, because otherwise we will fight the ego, and that is mission impossible. We can't fight the ego. As long as we have a body, we will have an ego. It's like our shadow. But it's a question of how to tame the ego, or how to, I don't like the word control, but it is about how to control the ego, to understand that it is a tool that we use, and to not allow it to trick us into believing that it is who we are
Right.
truly.
And when we were talking about this topic earlier in the week, we're talking about love and people pleasing, and people's view of love is so skewed and warped, and love brings perfect peace and balance. And so when people think that they're loving another, they're usually an ego trying to protect themselves from being seen, heard. And so it's, we have this view. So when you say it's a tool, it is a tool. And until we can see it as a tool, we're subject to its wills and desire. But when we can stay in the seat and throne of ourselves and then say, oh, hello, ego, I will, choose this, I will choose to use you. If we don't get to that place, we miss the gratitude of the moment, the rain splashing on your face or whatever, that specific. It's just rain, or it's just the wind, or it just is. That's in ego. But when you can separate the filter, you're like, wow, it's incredible. All that is right now is incredible.
Yeah, it's about understanding the filter and understanding the real deal here.
Mm.
The real deal is in the choice, in choosing, because as we said in the beginning of this, ego is the narrator. It will give you all the stories it finds out there. It's like telling you about everything, talking about everything it sees. Wherever you put your awareness, the ego will judge it, evaluate it, say you like it, you don't like it. It will always want you to hear a story. Now, your power is not to silence it totally, because then you miss the point of being in this physical reality. You're here exploring something. The point is in choosing your truths. And here's where the beliefs come into play, because if you've been conditioned to see the world in a certain way, that is something that the ego will use. It will use the belief system to separate you even more from the world by showing you evidence of that belief system. So if you cannot see through that and say, okay, wait a minute, this does not feel right. It's a little bit too narrow. It's a little bit too hard to breathe in this. That is how you know that the ego is trying to tell you a story which will not be beneficial for you. It will actually shrink you. The ego wants the limitation. It wants to pull in. It wants to hold on to. It wants to control. And if it feels like it is too much control in that story, or if it doesn't allow you to breathe, as you usually say, then the ego is using you. You are not using the ego as a tool. And this can be it can be really, really tricky. For me, it was, I actually had an aha moment in our last Sunday live where we were talking about me and my son. And when I realized that, uh, when I realized the belief systems that I was contaminating him with, even though they come as love, they're
Mm,
still not what he needed. He needed something else. I was talking about me over protecting him when he was just a little baby, because I needed this when I was a child. I needed to be protected and I wasn't protected. So I wanted to give him what I thought was the most important thing. In his reality, he was born into an unconditionally loving environment where he already was protected. So what he needed was some space from me. And I
mm,
couldn't see this because my ego, my victimhood, and my ego uses that victimhood in order to give me a version of reality where I think that I am giving love to my son when I'm actually imprinting him with beliefs which will make him feel smaller, fearful, and it's all in the name of love.
right, right.
Uh, and that's the tricky part, to understand whose needs am I filling here.
Mm,
Because if it is my needs and I am imposing them on another human being, then I'm being used by my ego.
right, right. And love, this gets back to this concept of what is love. And
Yes.
I mean, that's a, I know many forms of the narrative of love have come through religion, have come through the philosophers, the poets of history, at many, the painters, the artists, everyone's trying to explore what this concept of love is without a corresponding narrative of, you can only define your worth processing what love is through the ego. So there,
Mm,
philosopher who talks about love, or the religion that talks about love, without saying also through your ego is how you're filtering, is this loving, am I being loving, we're missing what we're truly seeking, is that peace. You wanted your son to feel safe, you wanted to feel safe. Well, what, how do we feel safe? We feel safe in the unconditional and the infinite, what is, all that is, which is love.
mm, mm,
And I just find it fascinating, almost sad in a way, that you can look at the body of humans on this planet. Everyone wants to be loved, but no one's teaching that ego is the blocker for what you truly seek. And then they use the narrative of it is loving
mm.
in ego, but that's not love because it perpetuates the cycle. So
Yes.
I don't know. It's just a fascinating wheel that we find ourselves stuck in. And maybe that's the
Mm,
karmic wheel until we find like, oh, I'm not this ego anymore. I am
mm,
love. And I don't
mm,
have to do anything. I can hold space for another or I can engage another, but I'm
mm.
aware of what the other needs because I'm not in my ego.
Yes, you're not filtering it and you're not gaslighting yourself into thinking false thoughts about reality. I mean, ego can make you think false thoughts about your loved ones. And then after an argument or having a fight, you wake up in the morning and you think, wait a minute, why did I say this? Why did I do that? Because you didn't, your ego did. That's why you can't identify yourself with it, because ego did this. And then ego brings more energy into it by giving you guilt the day after, for instance. So it gets its energy from that. And then you're in ego mode. So it takes a long time to cleanse yourself from an experience like that. One way of always knowing if you are in ego mode or if you are in your soul mode is to ask yourself, where am I right now? Am I in the future or am I in the past? Because the ego will always try, the ego's survival mechanism is to distract you. So if there is nothing in the now moment, it does not like you to be in the now moment because that is where you are. The real you, the essence of who you are, is always to be found in the now moment. So the ego wants you to be distracted with either the future or the past. So if
Mm,
you find yourself like I did when my son was newly born. Oh my God, what if this and that happens to him in the future? What if he does not like me in the future? What if he does not like himself in the future? In the future, worrying about what's going to happen when he's 20 while I'm holding him and he's a few hours old. This is my ego doing this. It is not protection. It is not love. It is my ego driving me
Mm,
because it wants me to worry. That is a distraction from being in the now moment and looking at this baby. Or I'm in my past thinking my parents did this. I don't want to do this to my son. I need to do something else. And I'm in the past. I'm not present. If I am present, I will know exactly what this little child needs
mm,
because it is telling me that in real time, in presence, I will know exactly what it needs. Nothing else matters.
right.
Nothing else matters, only the now moment matters. And the ego does not want you to be. So if you feel like you're in the future all the time, worrying, 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 the only time where you should be in the future is when you allow ego to function the way it's supposed to function, helping you daydream about something that you desire and want. That's the only time you can be in the future and say, okay, this is good.
Mm,
It's the same thing when you're in the past and you're thinking, I shouldn't have done that, or this shouldn't have been done to me, or if they did this, I would have been like that. Futile,
right.
because it's the ego getting its energy and separating you from the now moment.
Mm. It's interesting where I keep saying it's interesting. I find it fascinating.
It
This
is.
the ego. It's like it is interesting. I
Yeah.
want to sit and look at this, and I think why these conversations are so beautiful is we can take these concepts and like a facet of a diamond, move it around, look at it like, oh, here it reflects this light. We can look at all this, but when we are in ego, there's a rigidity to it. There's a rigidness,
Yes.
like a unwillingness to bend and move and play. And the concept of right and wrong, black and white, duality, polarity, contrast, after a while, it just becomes boring. It's like,
Yes. Yes.
that's it. Okay, that's it. That's how we're supposed to be in ego. No, it's
Mm.
life becomes fun when we can use ego to explore, be
Yes.
present. Like I'm thinking of you holding your son as that baby, to be present in that moment, to feel his skin, to
Mm-hmm.
how often we can choose to be in that present moment and enjoy
Yeah.
the moment, or we can be future tensing in that now moment and lose these lose
Mm.
time. And this is all we have. And ego, I when we talk, I think ego is protecting the innocent child that we once were. And that's what its purpose is, to keep us pure and innocent. But it hyper goes into hyperdrive when it's constantly,
Mm.
that's why the judgment comes in. Is it safe? Is it not safe?
Yes.
Do I like this person? Do I not like this person? Can I trust them? Can I not trust them? It's like this constant,
Narration.
yeah, it's constant narration.
Mm-hmm.
And some adults grow up thinking that they are their ego. Some adults
Mm.
don't like their ego. Then they listen to this narrative of the ego is evil and wicked. And then they start self-hating themselves
And
because
it's
of this.
ego again.
It's
Yes.
ego again. It's so wild,
Yes.
this narrative. And so when I say
Yeah.
it's interesting, it's like to look at all this, but to come back, like you said, in this, what I call the throne of myself, like I am the one
Mm.
aware that I'm talking to you right now.
Mm.
I am aware that I am aware. That
Yes.
is present moment.
Exactly. To be in that present moment, because what you do is you know that you or I am aware. That
Mm,
means that you also know that you're not ego, and ego does not want you to know this because it feels like that means dying. And
mm,
it doesn't. It actually means expansion, becoming more of who you are. Of course, the ego wants you to keep your personality. It wants to keep you in one place. That is its job. So it is doing a good job if you are following your excitement like a child, following your excitement and looking for things that you actually want to explore. But the ego does not know how to do this all the time, looking for the good stuff. It will look for everything that you want to explore or don't want to explore. And it will present it to you. Oh, you don't like this. Look at this. You do not like that. And you go further and further into what you don't like
Oh my gosh.
because it's showing you this. This is some distraction for you. The way I see reality, what you focus on becomes your reality. So if you are not aware of it, the ego might pull you into a direction where you don't want to go. So you start focusing on the things that you're irritated about, the things that you don't like, and it becomes a neurotic story
Right.
instead of a beautiful story where you're actually exploring things that you like. I mean, we've all done this. You look outside and you see, oh, it's raining, I don't want it to rain. You could say, oh, it's raining, let's go outside.
Yeah.
Be,
Yeah.
being happy for it and say, let's explore rain. But we don't, because we judge it, we put a value on it, and it's ego doing this.
Yes.
That is its job. So it's doing its job, but we need to master it. Ego wants to feel you like it is your master, where you actually are the master of your ego always. You just have to understand that it is you choosing what story you want to believe.
Right.
And
I'm
ego can talk about whatever it likes. Sorry, go
no, no,
ahead. Go
I'm
ahead.
laughing because I've been teaching my kids lately. And I know there's a family member in their lives that just will say what they don't like all the time. So I'll be cooking like, I don't like that. And I'm like, no one asked you if you like it. It's just a willingness to say I don't like that. And my kids have been,
Yeah.
I love cooking. I cook all the time, and they'll come
Hmm.
in and they're like, oh, I don't like that. And I'm like,
Hmm.
we don't start with what we don't like. I didn't say you had to eat it. I enjoy this, and teaching them. And it's funny, like, what is that propensity in them to judge? And I'm teaching them, it's it's not about if you like it or don't like it. You get to observe what I like and hold space for me as I hold
Hmm.
space for you. If I told you I don't like chicken nuggets, but then I fed you chicken nuggets, how would you feel
Hmm.
about consuming the chicken nuggets? Now I've imprinted my judgment on your
Yes.
consumption, and that happens all the time. I don't like that. People say that. I mean, just they'll lead conversations with what they don't like, and I always say,
Hmm.
don't tell me what you don't like. Tell me what you do like. Let's explore the
Well,
positive.
it is. Yeah. I mean, isn't it interesting how most people can tell you what they like? When I talk, I ask people, tell me what you do, what you like, tell me your desires, and they can't tell me their desires. They will tell me, yeah, but I don't like that. They start with I don't like, exactly as our children. Why is that? Do you have a theory about that? Because I've been wondering, why do we start with what we don't like? Why is it easier to say what we don't like than what we like? Are we spending too little time on things that we actually want? Or what is it that makes us do this?
I can't get it. I hear. I, I can't. It's funny, conversations with them. I don't like that. Okay, well, it's the same thing with so many people are able to say what they're against. They have a hard time speaking what they're for. It's like I'm anti,
Mm,
anti, 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 anti. What are you for? What unity? When's the
mm,
last time we've had a unity march? When's the last time we've had wholeness and wellness and virtuous and like, but it's always anti, it's negative. And I do think that there are intentional energies that get placed into frequencies and vibrations that we can pick up on this negative stuff, and it's a default. And
mm.
if we never wake up, we stay in it. So if we never wake up from ego, we stay in
Hmm.
the negative.
Absolutely.
And people are easily controlled in the negative because you don't get to explore. In the
No.
positive, you can go anywhere and everywhere, look at
Mm,
anything and everything. You can jump into all religions, all philosophies, all books, all teachings, all
mm,
thoughts, and you're like, wow, this is fascinating because it exists. I'm not placing a judgment on it. It's just here for me to explore. But if I say I don't like that, I have just cut off, we cut off, humans cut off
mm,
vast amounts of this reality. So it gets to the point where I don't like rain. It's raining. You mean you
mhm.
don't like green plants? You don't like life? Like, what are we really saying when, oh, it's raining? I don't like rain.
Mm. Yes, absolutely. It's about cutting off everything else and just keeping that single frequency of what you don't like. And guess what? The universe says, okay, got it.
That's right.
Which means that I will bring you more of the things that you don't like because you're in the frequency of not liking. So it says, what more can I give you that you don't like? Here you go, explore this. Do you like that or don't you? It wants to please you. It gives you absolutely everything that you don't like because you asked for it when you said, I don't like this. But I do think that it is the ego trying to control stuff, saying, don't give me that, I don't like that. So you can't force me to try it. And it gives itself power when it says no to something,
Yes.
because it's about separation. That is the ego doing it. It
Yes.
is its job to say no, 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 no.
Right. Which is interesting though, the contrast of being loving, being in love. And I don't mean the feeling, I don't mean the Hollywood story. I mean the actual very essence of our existence. Love, like oxygen, is and will give
Mhm.
everyone exactly what they want. So if they want low vibrational frequencies, it gets low vibrational frequencies. If you want
Unconditionally.
unconditionally, you can
Yeah.
just have it because that's what you want. I will give you what you want. Um, and yet it's not, I think, in the true essence and space of love, to see ourselves as one species. We are one consciousness, this human consciousness plane in our ego containers to explore all that is. But if when we can stay in that place of love, this the throne of ourself, and not be the ego, we can hold space for everyone else to explore what they like. And I think there's this, because when you say I don't like that, there's also don't don't do that. There's not
Mhm.
just a charge of like I don't like that. It's always like I don't like that too. It's a shooting energy out to another person. It's not like I don't like, and listing off the things like
Mhm.
philosophically. It's
Mhm.
energetic to the other person to hedge what
Mm.
they're doing, so what they do doesn't affect me. But when we're in that place of love, we can hold space. Like,
Mm.
fascinating, why do you like that, or what
Mhm.
is it about this that you're doing that you find that it opens up the questions.
Mhm.
And maybe that's what we're forgetting. Maybe to be in the soul is to ask those questions, and ego doesn't
Mm.
ask questions.
No, it really doesn't, or it asks the negative questions. But
Right.
it's also about the intention behind saying, I don't like that. You
Mm,
can say it, I don't like that, because you want someone else to change.
yeah.
That's a manipulative energy underneath it. So, of course, the other one will feel guilt because they like something you don't like.
Right.
But if you say, I don't like that, I've tried it and I don't like it, but it's okay if if the energy underneath it is, but it's okay if you like it, because
Yes.
I have no opinion about that. That is a different thing. So the same sentence can be either boosted by ego
Right.
or actually carried by soul. You can say, I don't like that. I've
Right.
tried it and I don't like it. It's not about not being able to say that. It's when you go around and say, I don't like that. I don't like rain, just because you want to make a statement of who you are. It's
Right.
better to make a statement of who you are with what you like and what you desire and what you want to explore, instead of what you don't like, what you hate, and what you do not want to explore.
That's right.
It's a negative version of who you are. So it's better to present a positive version of who you are by saying, I really love this and I really like that,
Yes.
to show who you are. Ego will be satisfied with that too. And that's a better way to use the ego, when you say, I like this, I don't like that, instead of using the energy where you try to make an imprint of on someone else, or
Right.
telling them, why do you like that, that's disgusting. Why would you say that?
I don't know.
It's
It's
not disgusting to the person eating it or doing it.
oh my gosh, it's
It's
so
a judgment
funny.
in it. It's
Yeah.
about the judgmental energy underneath it. And I think this is what I mean, and what you also mean when we talk about not allowing the ego to trick us, to use it as a boundary or a border of who I am, but still keep it transparent so that I can see other human beings and allow them to be who they are.
Right. That's that holding space. That's what I think we
Yeah.
talked about. We talked about, I don't know if it was last live or maybe the course where I can't remember now, but Hillel the Elder talked. So the golden rule has two sides to this one rule. And Hillel the Elder taught that that which you deem hateful unto yourself, do not do unto another. So that worked when we're very tribalistic, is that your tribe does not infringe upon another tribe. What you don't want done to you, you don't do to another. And then this other teaching, this positive, so that's, I would call the not negative in judgment, but it's the negative of the battery.
Mm-hmm.
And the positive side of the battery is do unto others what you would want done unto yourself. So don't do and do. And we can only be conscious of that choice when we're in soul, not in ego, because I would have to then think of you not from what you will do to me, but what you really want for you. And that is a different thing. If my kids came down and like, I'm just laughing because it happens all the time. They're like, Dad, what is it that you are making that you like right now? And I would be able to say, well, this is what, would you like some? No, thank you. I would like this. And like, great, let me make that for you. And we can have this great collaboration and creation. And that can exist. I'm joking around. It's funny because my little kids say this, but you think how humanity could be if we said, what is it that you're enjoying right now? I'm holding space for you. You get to share. And like, that's wonderful. And this is what I want to do. And we create this dance together versus ego is, I don't like, no. And it's really ridiculous. Really, if you think of it, I'm laughing.
It's humoristic when we think of it. The entire ego business is actually humoristic because it is about separating yourself from everyone else, even though you are actually one with everyone else. So it's an illusion, and it's humoristic how we work so hard to separate ourselves from others. But I think that with children, it becomes more ego based when they start going to school, because then they have to interact with other children and their own space becomes threatened by what they have to do, even if they don't want to do it. So that is, I think, where this seed of saying, I don't like that, I don't want that, because it's a survival mechanism when you go to school, when you are together with other children and every child wants to have attention. I think that we have a flawed system when it comes to school, where there is one grown up and there's 30 kids and every child wants attention. Of course, the signal would be to lower everything down so that you become one with everyone. But that a child cannot do that. A child needs to explore who it is. And that's when they start saying, no, I don't want that, I don't want that, because it's a way to hold space for oneself. I think that's where it all starts. I don't have a concept of how the school system should work, but I don't think this is the right one. I really don't. I feel like we are imprinting our children with, or actually we are activating their egos way too early. And that brings them into saying no to many, many things in life because they don't want to explore anything. They just want to get through the day and then come home and then start exploring. And I think that is where this seed of, no, I don't like that, I don't want that, comes from, because we're not born that way. A little child doesn't start that. I remember giving my son lemon because I wanted to see what he would do. Horrible mother as I am, because I wanted to have some fun. And he didn't say, I don't like that, I don't want that. He tried it. He took it and he tried it. And he tried it 3 times before he said, yeah, I don't want it.
That's awesome.
So you see, we are open. We are always open. As children, we are open to all the explorations that are given to us. But if you are in a classroom, there's 30 other human beings wanting of course you will put yourself aside and sit in silence and say, no, I don't want that, I don't want that, because otherwise you'll be maybe punished or you won't be one of them. There's so many things going on there. I think that's where we start saying no to life, actually.
Yeah, to keep us safe, to protect us.
Yes.
It's it's something that why I think these lives are so important is to give it. We're not talking about, there's so much talk about ego. We're talking about really soul. And
Yes.
that's really what we're talking about. It's soul. And
Mm,
there's so few resources. You know, your book is one, this video is one, but there's very few resources. There's a lot on ego, there's very little on soul.
mm,
And the adult who has yet to reclaim their own sovereignty, their own, the throne of themselves. This is a term it's been reverberating in me, the throne of myself. Am I the
mm,
sovereign in me, or is it ego or someone else? And you know, working together, that took me a long time to get the voice of my father out of my head. I mean, I'm an
mm,
adult with running a business, and still his voice is in my head. And I was like, this, get out, get
mm,
out, like, get out of my head, get out of my thoughts. These are my, this is my life, this is my thoughts, these are my choices. And I think when we can reclaim the sovereignty of our soul, reclaim the sovereignty of our life, and realize that fear is used by those in ego to control us, but love is infinite and unconditional, then there's
mm,
nothing that we could ever explore that is too late or too, it's the
yeah.
end. Like, you know, what do they shame with? Sex, they shame with, you know, everything. They shame,
Mm,
shame, shame. Oh, you're ruined, you're broken, you're done, it's too late. It's never too late. I just explored the reality, and this is what I have chosen. Like,
mhm,
if people felt that level of safety
mm,
and held, I think, in the universe, and held by love, it's like,
mm,
even if you had contracted something that makes you sick, even if you explored it, and did you explore
mm,
it well? And yes, there's
mm,
consequences, but were you held? Are you in the
mm,
sovereignty of your soul, or are you feeling other people's impressions upon you of what, if you're good or bad, right or wrong?
mm.
That's prison.
Uh,
That's hell.
yeah, but exactly, the ego will keep you in a mind prison
Right.
because the ego contains the image of you. An image cannot be who you are. And this is why we are talking about soul, because that is who you are. You are the essence. This essence within me, this life force, is exactly the same as within you. What differs you from me is the image that you hold, which
Yes.
is your ego. So the positive side of that ego would be, it's like this glass of water. This is the ego. This is the soul in it. And if I believe that I'm the ego, then this glass is no longer transparent. And
Mm.
my soul cannot see reality outside. It is contained within the ego. And that is very painful for a soul to feel. And this is why we feel emotional pain. It is when the ego drives us, when the ego narrates the world as dangerous to us. But as I said, the ego is about your image. It is not about what is contained inside. And the image, it's an image. It is changeable, which means that if you're exploring things, if you pick up the positive stuff in your reality, if you have an experience which might be interpreted as bad, but you look for the brightest side of it and you see how it helped you grow, you can contain that within your image and still keep the glass intact, keep it transparent, because you brought in something that could have made it black transparent, and you use it as your image. An image can change. Who you truly are is unchangeable. An image is an interaction with the outer reality. Who you truly are is the one interacting with the outer reality. So the image is the surface. And of course, we want to polish the surface. We want to be our best versions.
Right.
But if we think that we're the surface, that is when the danger becomes really, I mean, it becomes really painful to live in a world where you think that only the surface matters.
That's right.
Because the oneness we all want to explore, the unconditional love that we all are seeking, is the essence of who each and every one of us is,
Yeah.
beyond the ego. The
Yes.
ego is the game that we're playing here.
That's right. I
The essence is the playing one. Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, when I lead these men's retreats and I help men, I ask them, if you were burnt in a fire, existing in a wheelchair the rest of your life, would your wife still love you?
Mm,
Or you allowing the love to be the image? And do you love her? These men that are married, obviously, I'm asking these.
mm,
The
mm.
point is to see beyond the veil, see
Yeah.
beyond this container, to see the soul, that I love your soul. And in the love of one's soul,
Mm,
we can hold space. This is what we're falling back in love with, is the soul. And then the container becomes fun, or becomes like you said, a game. And it is a game. It's a dance. We can ask each other to
mhm,
dance. Want to dance? This is a dance. You and I are dancing
mhm,
together, creating something beautiful together. But I love your soul, you love my soul, and we can hold space. It's not about right, wrong, good, bad,
mhm,
black, white, positive, negative
mm.
polarities. It's about can we see? It's this, Jesus said in the Bible, it says, he who has eyes to see, let him see. And I'm like, I've always wondered, what does that actually mean? I think it means to see the soul, not the outer
The
container.
surface. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. I've asked myself this question many times. What is it that I love about my husband?
right.
And I remember we watched a movie many years ago. It was Crying Game. I think it was Crying Games. I don't remember exactly, but it was about a woman who actually turned out to be a man. And there was a man falling in love with this woman. And then he realized that it is a man. And he still loved him. And
Mm.
for me, when we came home, I was thinking, what would happen if my husband turned out to be a woman? Which is a really funny thing to say because
Married so long.
not happening in this universe. But anyway, I was playing around with it in my mind and I was thinking, no, that wouldn't change anything because if he is who he is,
Yeah.
then I don't care about the package. And that was a revelation for me because I mean, that is a big thing to get, that
Yes.
it is actually what is underneath the surface. Of course, I love what he's wrapped into. I love the wrapping paper around it, the
Yeah.
surface. That is what I saw in the beginning. It is, we always see the surface of each other, but it is about how much you are open and how much of your soul you're allowing through that surface to come out. And of course, I think all of us want to see the other person in that way, to
Yes.
see their soul and to say that, yes, I would love him or her unconditionally, regardless of what happens.
And
That's,
as you're sharing that, think of, I mean, we could all picture, there's a lot of people in their, this is not a judgment, it's just an aware objective awareness that there are people in their container that are working so hard to keep their container beautiful, but their soul doesn't emanate, and they are not as beautiful as the one whose soul emanates from
mm,
within, who doesn't maybe have all the cosmetic, like you can see the denseness in the cosmetic world
yeah.
versus the emanation from within. And I'm not saying that the soul can't emanate through that world, but there are two different paths in a way. The beauty is like the light from within is our soul shining forth, whether our
Mhm.
container is what some deem as beautiful or not. We're beautiful
Mm,
when we emanate from within.
mm. I think that you can see on the surface if a person is curious about this world or if a person is in fear about this world. The
Mm,
fear makes you want to use more of the stuff to polish the surface. Whereas when you're curious about the world, you're actually curious about the interaction with the world. So your surface becomes less dense. You need to interact with the world, and the surface is not as dense. And then you feel like you don't need as much makeup. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to use makeup. I have makeup on. So it's not about that, but it's about playing with it, not allowing it to become a condition of how you interact with the world. It's
Right.
about using it. This curiosity is one of the most important things. And since curiosity is all about expansion, curiosity is all about not knowing, but trying and seeing over the edge, so to speak, the ego does not love that.
Mm.
The ego doesn't want you to do that because it wants to contain, it wants to limit. So when your curiosity starts, you know that your soul is waking up. It's a sign that the soul is waking up. If you're making a judgment about something, you've closed the curiosity. There's no curiosity there, and you feed the ego. But if you see something, and as your son says, I don't like that, and then you taste it and you go, maybe I do like that.
Yeah, that's right.
That is how you allow that curiosity to
Mm,
give your soul a chance to try something that you think you wouldn't like to taste.
that's right. And
So it's
boil down, all we want, I will say this as a blanket statement. Every human just wants to be loved. We
yeah.
just want to be loved. And it's counterintuitive to live from a state of I don't like and put the impression on someone else or project onto someone else what we don't like, when at the end of the day we just want to be loved. And if I held space for that person and allowed them to blossom more, they would
Mm-hmm.
reciprocate that back, and we will feel the love that we are seeking so desperately, craving. I mean, people go to
Mm-hmm.
church 52 times a year to hear the same message, that there is a God who loves them, and yet
Unconditionally. Mm-hmm.
unconditionally, and yet 365 days a year we have infinite amount of encounters with humanity where we can experience that love if we
Mm-hmm.
choose to stop projecting from ego and to hold space for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
to hold space for another, and be curious, like you're saying,
Yes.
curiosity and explore.
Mm.
Oh, it just becomes glorious. Like, and that is the
Yes.
superior being that can liberate
Yes.
and pull people up and say, come out of the shadow. Let us dance again. Let us break
Yes.
bread together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We all want this unconditional love. The problem with wanting unconditional love is that wanting is a condition.
Yeah. Bingo.
Yes, needing is a
It's
condition.
so funny. Yeah.
Craving is a condition. So it feels like there's something built in the system that you can't get unconditional love.
Right.
Well, you can't get unconditional love if you think that you're going to get it on the outside.
That's it.
You can't attract it. You can't pull it in. You can't want it. You can't crave it. You can't need it, because all of these things are conditions. So what's left? Well, the inside. And where is the source of unconditional love? It
Mm,
is here. You're always sending out a frequency. If you are sending out unconditional love, then you are standing in that frequency, which means that you are getting unconditional love. It comes from you. That is where it is. The ego will not allow you to do that, because it will start judging things and narrating things why you can't feel the unconditional love. But you're the master of your ego. You can say, no, I'm allowing unconditional love into the world right now
right.
because I want to feel it. And you allow it to come from you. You are the source. I am the source. You're the source. Everyone listening is the source. Imagine if every one of us just sat in meditation, sending out unconditional love. At least we would feel the unconditional love
Yes.
because we are sending it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the ego will trick you into thinking that you have to do something to get unconditional love from the outside, whereas source tells you, what are you doing? I'm right here.
Right.
Just come and get it.
John Curtis, who's watching, just said, hence the saying, be the change you want to see.
Yes.
And said from a man who led, I think, the most powerful revolution, at least in the past 100 years. And no, it was nonviolent.
Yes.
India literally over released, I don't know what word I want to use, but Great Britain, the
Yeah.
most powerful force on the planet without firing a shot because
You're
it
talking about Gandhi.
Gandhi, yes, and
Yes,
it
yes,
was
yes,
an
yes.
internal beingness, and he
Hmm.
held that space and said, "Be." And maybe the
Hmm.
being, talk about be, do, have. Most people are trying to have, do, so they can be, but that beingness attracts everything, even
Hmm.
a country to overthrow the greatest power on the planet to reclaim
Hmm.
their own sovereignty. That's soul.
Yes, because when you stand in that frequency, this just being in it, you are totally in the now moment, which
Mm,
means that ego cannot drive you because you are standing in the now moment. And this frequency is a booster of everything. I mean, the sky would be much more blue, the grass would be much more green. The person you're looking at, you would feel so much love for that person because you know that that person is the same essence as you are. This frequency opens up everything because it's unconditional. It allows everything to be as it is, not as ego narrates it for you or translates it for you or shows it to you.
right, right.
This frequency does not allow ego to narrate anything for you. And you can stand there and look at the world as it is, not as ego wants you to see it.
Amazing.
It is really, and it's easy because it comes from within. It's nothing else. I mean, this you can practice with your loved ones because every time you look at someone you love and you look at them with, I want them to change, I want them to do this or that, that is your ego speaking. When you look at your loved ones with unconditional love, you will see who they truly are. Otherwise, you're blinded by the ego and you can't see who they truly are.
Right.
So it is really important to feel when the ego pulls. The ego pulls, or this is how the ego pull feels. It pulls you into the future, into the past, away from the now moment, into judgment, into fear, into hate, into a negative space. Know this, that anytime you feel anything of this, you are in ego mode and you can say, no, not right now, because I am here right now. And you stand in that stillness and choose, what is it that I actually do want to see in this reality. I
Where,
know that it is almost time to stop.
yeah, it's so
One
good.
hour,
It's so good.
such a short time, 1 hour. But you know what? Let me share just 3 points. If you take away from this Sunday live, number one is that you are not your ego. You own your ego.
Mm,
It is yours. It's like a tool. It's like having a hammer. You own it. It can never be you. You're the one using it in this reality to explore this reality. The second thing to know is that ego tells you stories. It is the narrator within you. It will tell you different stories. Your power is to choose what story you prefer.
mm.
And the third thing is the ego focuses on the past or the future. You are always in the now moment. So if you feel the pull in either direction, pull back and be in the now moment. That is how you trick your ego to shut up.
And and one of the best ways to do that is to breathe. Be patient
Yes.
with breaths.
Yes.
It's interesting when people sigh, it's actually the opposite of that conscious breath.
Mm.
It's like when people sigh in frustration, it's actually because they're in ego versus come back in that
Mm.
place and hold space. And we've had some beautiful comments today. We've had
Mm.
beautiful people watching. Um, and we're going to go live again next Sunday and we'll have
Yes.
more beautiful topics for everyone. And today is fun. I was in a laughing, but I just couldn't get the image of my son asking or telling me what he doesn't like. But oh, it's fun. That's fun. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching. See you next Sunday.
Bye, guys.